The other thing that our sisters and brothers in Mexico brought to our attention is that, I bet you very few people here tonight has heard about this. I didn't hear about it until they brought it to my attention. But the US and Mexico have had secretive discussions about how, theoretically, to control the drug problem in Mexico. And what is supposed to be discussed here in Montebello as well, but they're wondering whether in fact they're going to announce it because it's going to cause trouble in Mexico. The people of Mexico are not going to take this sitting down. Their plan is something like Plan Colombia. If people know what's been happening in Colombia, Plan Colombia for Mexico, which would entail, amongst other things, the provision by the United States to the Mexican authorities of telephone tapping equipment. Again, theoretically for the drug lords, but we all know, in the case of Colombia, what's been happening with that type of equipment. Also aircraft to transport Mexican drug officials around the country. Also training initiatives for Mexican officials in which presumably a lot of this will be done on Mexican soil by US officials. This is opening a door towards a real problem for Mexican citizens themselves, not just the drug lords. And this is, in fact, the legacy of what's happened under Plan Colombia in Colombia. So, I just want to say that on Thursday of this past week, there was a meeting held in Montreal, which was the first of its kind, and also is was put together specifically to respond to the SPP. And the SPP's interest in trying to turn the energy sector further into the hands of the big corporations. There are 19 unions from across Mexico, the United States, and Canada came together in this meeting in Montreal, and 9 civil society organizations along with them. And in that meeting, I learned a lot. Things that I'd never heard of before, and a lot of comparisons between what's happening with the Canadian energy sector and the Mexican energy sector. I can't go into them, I'm running out of time now. I can't go into all of this. Let me just say that we have to understand that Mexico is facing a very similar situation in some cases to what we're facing around our energy. I'll give you just 3 examples, quick ones. The whole question of where pipelines and for oil and the power grid for electricity is going. Do you know, I sort of thought about it, but I hadn't really thought about it before, that there is no oil pipeline that runs through Canada from Alberta to Ontario and Quebec. There's one that sort of goes through Chicago, which then can be shipped back into Canada. But there's none, if you're talking about security questions, there's none that actually stay in Canada, runs the whole east-west length. So we're in a situation where we're exporting from Alberta directly to the United States, and we're importing 40% of our oil needs in the eastern part of Canada. There's no electrical grid that runs east-west in Canada. There is some electricity that can be passed through the United States once again, but nothing that stays in Canadian soil east-west. Well, the Mexicans are facing a similar situation. The pressure on both Mexico and Canada is to build more pipelines and build more energy grids, but running north-south. They want us to bump up our production to send it to the United States. That's what energy security is about. The Mexicans are pumping 2/3 of their oil right now directly into the United States. That's roughly the same percentage that's going from Canada into the United States at this point. And there's pressure on both countries to generate, as I mentioned, the excess electricity and send it to the United States. The situation in Mexico is extreme in the sense that they actually have a surplus right now. So they wouldn't need to necessarily generate more for anybody else. They've got enough for their present needs. but they are under tremendous pressure to bump it up by 25% in a very short period of time, exclusively to send it north to the United States. Anyway, this was a very rich discussion that we had on Thursday. Many of the trade unionists came to Ottawa and are in Montebello today. And in fact, last night at a forum, they presented a document that came out. And I think this ensures that our sisters and brothers in the trade union movement in particular are on board and will be fighting in this area on the SPP from now on. So we welcome this stronger presence of theirs as we go forward in the fight against the SPP. Let me read you just to conclude the last three paragraphs of their statement. It says, "We commit ourselves to establish coordination between this forum and the Energy Workers Forum of Latin America and the Caribbean to share experiences and joint actions with respect to energy integration plans. We will continue to work with our social partners in the hemispheric solidarity movements to bring workers of each country together and to jointly challenge the harmful consequences of unfair trade agreements and neoliberal globalization policies. Energy policies will shape our world in the 21st century. These policies will lead either to democratic, sustainable development or to global environmental disaster and new wars of aggression. Energy workers, their unions, and social partners in Mexico, Canada, and the United States will act together for democratic, sustainable national development of our energy resources." Thank you.